जरूरत नहीं। वो खिड़की खुला है या बंद है? नहीं तो एक फैन लगा सकते थे। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौरत्वसे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Hare Krishna. Okay, so welcome to this unit of Bhakti Vaibhav course. तो अभी तक कितना हुआ आप लोगों का? 16 chapter. Okay, so what happened in the 16th chapter? What did you study?
They are Kumaras are disturbed with the behavior of the Jai Vijay and they curse them. Then Lord appeared and Lord asks pardon on their behalf. That you are Brahmanas more dear to me than my and he said this is my servant. So for their mistake I am ready to lop off my hands. So I am glorious because I am taking dust of Brahmanas on my head. Like that.
Okay, good. Okay, so the 4 Kumaras curse Jai and Vijay. And so then what happens? Jai and Vijay become Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So then So what happens to Hiranyaksha that you've seen in the movie, right? So the battle between Hiranyaksha and Varadev. So then there's a description of so before that there's description in the 12th chapter you've studied, right? Creation. So Swayambhu Manu is born along with Shatarupa. And then Swayambhu Manu was given instruction to what? Yes, create progeny. And so Swayambhu Manu asked, okay, I'm ready, but where is earth? So then he approaches whom? Yes, Swayambhu Manu approaches Brahma, and then Brahma sees that Mother Earth has fallen into Garbhada Koshan. And then as Brahmaji is thinking what to do, what happens? क्या होता? Huh?
He gets a sneezing.
As Brahmaji is thinking what to do, then what happens? Ah, मूवी में देखा है ना? So from his nostril, small bore comes, then expands, then he becomes Varadev. And so then Varadev goes and picks up Mother Earth and restores her in her orbits. So this is what takes place in the Swayambhu Manvantar. And in the Chakshusha Manvantar, there is appearance of so it is this Raktavara who actually kills Hiranyaksha. But Shukdev Goswami in his narration, he combines both. And so therefore there is description of Hiranyaksha being killed by or delivered by Varadev. And so there is that whole description in the 17th, 18th and 19th chapters. There's a description of the battle between Varadev and Hiranyaksha. So now, Swayambhu Manu had how many children? Five. How many sons, how many daughters? Kya? Yes, 2 sons and 3 daughters. 2 sons' names? Yes, Uttanapad and Priyavrat. And 3 daughters? Yes, Akuti, Prasuti and Devhuti. So now this is what is being described in the 21st chapter. Okay, so that is where the 21st chapter begins. So we have four chapters to cover, quite lengthy each one. So we will try to focus on some important points. Okay, let's begin. Chapter 21, conversation between Manu and Kardamuni. Text 1. Vidura uvacha swayambhuvasya cha manor vamsha paramasammataha katyatam bhagavan yatra maitune dhire prajaha. Vidura said, the line of Swayambhu Manu was most esteemed. O worshipful sage, I beg you, give me an account of this race whose progeny multiplied through sexual intercourse. Okay, so basically Vidura wants to hear about the lineage of Swayambhu Manu. One point Prabhupada writes, an important word used in this connection is paramasammataha, which indicates that the progeny created by Swayambhu Manu and his sons was approved by great authorities. In other words, sex life for creating exemplary population is acceptable to all sages and authorities of Vedic scripture. Verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Dharma Viruddha Bhuteshu Kamosmi. Okay. Text 2. The two great sons of Swayambhu Manu, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, ruled the world consisting of 7 islands, just according to religious principles. Prabhupada is giving a list of the 7 islands. Text 3. O holy Brahmana, O sinless one, you have spoken of his daughter, known by the name Devhuti, as the wife of the sage Kardama, the lord of created beings. Text 4. How many offspring did that great yogi beget through the princess who was endowed with 8-fold perfection of the yoga principles? Oh, pray tell me for this, for I am eager to hear it. Okay, so these are questions of Vidura. So he's asking about Devhuti. How many children did Devhuti beget through Kardamoni? Text 5. O holy sage, tell me how the worshipful Ruchi and Daksha, the son of Brahma, generated children after securing as their wives the other 2 daughters of Swayambhu Manu. So the other 2 daughters of Swayambhu Manu were Akuti and Prasuti. So Akuti was married to Ruchi and Prasuti was married to Daksha. So this comes in the beginning of the 4th canto. Okay, in the beginning of the 4th canto, there's a description of this Ruchi and Akuti and Daksha and Prasuti, and then pastime with Lord Shiva, all that. And then the other son, that is Uttanapad, and his son Dhruva Maharaj, that is also in the 4th canto. But the questions have been asked by Vidura over here. And the conversation and the reply of Maitreya Muni continues from here into the 4th canto. The great sage Maitreya replies. So those were the questions of Vidura till text 5. So now Maitreya's reply. The great sage Maitreya replied, commanded by Lord Brahma to beget children in the worlds, the worshipful Kardamuni practiced penance on the bank of the river Saraswati for a period of 10,000 years. Okay. So he practiced meditation for 10,000 years. As Prabhupada writes, is understood herein that Kardamuni meditated in yoga for 10,000 years before attaining perfection. Similarly, we have information about that Valmiki Muni also practiced yoga meditation for 60,000 years before attaining perfection. Therefore, yoga practice can be successfully performed by persons of very long duration of life, such as 100,000 years. In that way, it is possible to have perfection in yoga. Otherwise, there's no possibility of attaining real perfection. So that is, all this Ashtanga yoga was possible in those ages where they had long duration of life. And then Prabhupada says all this is not possible in Kali Yuga. So therefore in Kali Yuga we have the Sankirtan Yajna. Okay, text 7. During that period of penance, the sage Kardama, by worship through devotional service and trance, propitiated the personality of Godhead, who is the quick bestower of all blessings upon those who flee to him for protection. So by performing these austerities for 10,000 years, the Supreme Lord was pleased with the performance of those austerities. And so the Supreme Lord has been described as Prapanna Varada Shusham. Prapanna Varada Shusham. So the Supreme Lord is also known as Varadaraj. So the giver of benedictions. So he's ready to give benedictions, but to whom? Those who are prapanna. That means surrendered. So only to those who are surrendered, he's ready to give benedictions. Prabhupada writes in the purport, Kardamuni practiced mystic yoga meditation for 10,000 years just to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari. Therefore, whether one practices yoga or speculates and does research to find God, one's efforts must be mixed with the process of devotion. Without devotion, nothing can be perfect. The target of perfection and realization is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said that one who constantly engages in Krishna consciousness is the topmost yogi. The personality of Godhead Hari also fulfills the desires of his surrendered devotee. So ultimately, bhakti is required if one wants perfection in any path of yoga. So therefore, we find in Bhagavad Gita, the Bhakti Yoga section is in between. So on one side there is first 6 chapters talking about Karma Yoga. Last 6 chapters, Jnana Yoga. And why Bhakti is in between? One is protection, but the other significant part is? Yes, so Bhakti is in between so that it touches Karma and Jnana on either sides, showing that Karma and Jnana cannot be perfect without some Bhakti. So that is the point Prabhupada is saying. So here, Kardamuni, he practiced Ashtanga Yoga, but the purpose was not simply some mystic siddhis. The purpose was to please the Supreme Lord. That was his purpose of practicing Ashtanga Yoga. To control the mind and senses, and thus focus the mind and senses on the Supreme Lord. So one has to surrender unto the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead Hari or Krishna in order to achieve real success. Devotional service or engagement in Krishna consciousness is the direct method, and all the other methods, although recommended, are indirect. And in this age of Kali, all the other methods are very difficult because of so many rules and regulations. And so therefore the direct method is what is possible in Kali Yuga. Next paragraph. The words Samprapede Harim mean that in various ways, Kardamuni satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari by his devotional service. Devotional service is also expressed by the word Kriya Yogena. Kardamuni not only meditated but also engaged in devotional service. To attain perfection in yoga practice or meditation, one must act in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. Remembering is meditation also. But who is to be remembered? One should remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not only must one remember the Supreme Lord, Supreme Person, one must hear about the activities of the Lord and chant his glories. So along with the practice of Ashtanga Yoga, ideally one is supposed to practice these various aspects of bhakti in order to please the Supreme Lord. So without practicing some bhakti, one cannot achieve perfection on the path of Ashtanga Yoga also. So Brahma says, and where there is no meditation upon the personality of God, where is yoga practice? So now, of course, people do all sorts of yoga without the Supreme Lord. So that is not yoga. That is only what? Bodily gymnastics. That's what Prabhupada says, right? Only bodily gymnastics. That is not yoga. So sometimes devotees also say, we're doing yoga. That is not yoga. That's only exercises. Real yoga is bhakti yoga. So we don't do any other type of yoga. Okay, text 8. तावत् प्रसन्नो भगवान् पुष्कराक्ष कृते युगे दर्शयामास तं क्षत्त शाब्दं ब्रह्म ददाद् वपु. Then in the Satyuga, so all this is happening in Satyuga, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, being pleased, showed himself to that Kardam Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas. So the Lord was so pleased with his 10,000 years of tapasya that darshayam, he showed his darshan to Kardam Muni. So something which is so very rare that Kardam Muni achieved. So this understanding of the Supreme Lord's form can be understood only through Shabdham Brahma, only through the Vedic injunctions. But even after studying all the Vedas, it's very difficult to understand the Supreme Lord. In Brahma Samhita it is said, Vedeshu Durlabham.
दुर्लभात आत्मभक्तो.
क्या हो रहा है? वेदेषु दुर्लभम अदुर्लभम आत्मभक्तो. कौन है ऑनलाइन? अच्छा, यहाँ नहीं आ सकते हैं वो लोग? ठीक है. Okay. So Prabhupada says here 2 points are very significant. The first is that Kardamuni attained success by yoga practice in the beginning of Satyuga, when people used to live for 100,000 years. Kardamuni attained success, and the Lord, being pleased with him, showed him his form, which is not imaginary. Sometimes impersonalists recommend that one can arbitrarily concentrate one's mind on some form he imagines or which pleases him. But he has very clearly said that the form which the Lord showed to Kardamuni by his divine grace is described in the Vedic literature. Okay, so one cannot imagine. So the Mayavadis, they say one can imagine any form, and therefore they concoct this what? Panchopasana. So you can worship any form, and then any form is okay in order to achieve the Supreme Brahman. But that is not bona fide. So one has to meditate on the bona fide form of the Lord. So now there's a description of the form of the Lord in the next few verses. Kardamuni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is free from material contamination. In his eternal form, effulgent like the sun, wearing a garland of white lotuses and water lilies, the Lord was clad in spotless yellow silk. His lotus face was fringed with slick dark locks of curly hair. Okay, now you all can read some few translations.
Text 10. Adorned with a crown and earrings, he held his characteristic conch, disc, and mace in 3 of his hands, and a white lily in the 4th. He glanced about in a happy, smiling mood, whose sight captivates the hearts of all devotees.
Next.
A golden streak on his chest, the famous Kaustuba gem, suspended from his neck. He stood in the air with his lotus feet placed on the shoulders of Garuda.
Okay, here Prabhupada writes, by performance of yoga, Kardamuni actually saw the Supreme Lord as he is. There was no point in seeing an imagined form of God after practicing yoga for 10,000 years. The perfection of yoga, therefore, does not terminate in voidness or impersonalism. On the contrary, the perfection of yoga is attained when one actually sees the personality of Godhead in his eternal form. The process of Krishna consciousness is to deliver the form of Krishna directly. Okay, so the ultimate perfection of yoga is to realize the form of the Lord. 12.
When Kardamuni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart, naturally full of love of God, with folded hands, he satisfied the Lord with prayers.
So Kardamuni was greatly satisfied because that was the purpose of his performing all the various austerities. So Srila Prabhupada gives some details about Ashtanga Yoga, which have also been described in the Bhagavad Gita purports in the 6th chapter. So here Srila Prabhupada writes, Patanjali describes that the soul is transcendently pleased when he meets the supersoul and sees him. If the existence of the supersoul and the individual is admitted, then the impersonalist theory of monism is nullified. Therefore, some impersonalists and void philosophers twist the Patanjali system in their own way and pollute the whole yoga process. Okay, so Patanjali also has clearly spoken about Ishwar, Ishwar Paridhan. So surrender to Ishwar, that is also the goal of the Ashtanga yogis. But then people don't follow properly and they concoct and twist and they try to prove that the purpose of this yoga is void or impersonalism. So this is all concoction. So as Prabhupada says very clearly, that even Patanjali has spoken about surrendering to Ishvara. So if Ishvara is there, Jiva is there, how there's only one? There are two. In the next paragraph, Prabhupada writes, but actually the stage of realization of the personality of Godhead is Kaivalya. The oneness of understanding that the Supreme Lord is fully spiritual and that in full spiritual realization one can understand what he is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Kaivalya, or in the language of Patanjali, realization of spiritual power. His proposal is that when one is freed from material desires and fixed in spiritual realization of the self and the super self, that is called Chit Shakti. In full spiritual realization, there is a perception of spiritual happiness, and that happiness is described in Bhagavad Gita as supreme happiness, which is beyond the material senses. Trance is described to be of two kinds, sampragyata and asampragyata, or mental speculation and self-realization. In samadhi or asampragyata, one can realize by his spiritual senses the spiritual form of the Lord. That is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. So this is also described later on by Lord Kapila also in the 28th chapter of the same canto. So Lord Kapila also describes the meditation of the yogi, and there he describes the entire form of the Lord and how the yogi meditates on that form. So that is the perfection of Ashtanga Yoga. So the perfection is not some voidness or impersonalism. So therefore Prabhupada writes here, Kardamuni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his eternal form. Devotional service begins with the relationship of the individual soul and the Supreme Soul, or Krishna and Krishna's devotees, and when one attains it, there is no question of falling down. If through the yoga system one wants to attain the stage of seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, but is attracted instead to attainment of some material power, then he is detoured from proceeding further. So if the yogi, he gets distracted by mystic siddhis, so then that's a distraction on his path. So one has to remain fixed to achieve the Supreme Lord and not become distracted. Okay, so now Kardamuni, he has darshan of the Supreme Lord and he is offering prayers to the Supreme Lord. Okay, so we will recite all these prayers. If you want, you can on maybe one or two of those fans. Text 13. So we'll recite together and then you all read the translation. Okay? And then we'll discuss a few points from the purport. Rishi Ruvacha Dushtam Badatkya Jushtam Batatkya Khilasatvarashe Samsidhyamakshno Darshanamnaha Yad Darshanam Janmabhiridya Sadbir Asha Sate Yogino Rudha Yogaha.
The great sage Kardama said, O Supreme Worshipful Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled, having attained the greatest perfection of the sight of you, who are the reservoir of all existences. Through many successive births of deep meditation, advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form.
So now Kardamuni is saying that, so I have seen you. This is what? Samsidhyam akshno tava darshanat. So this is the perfection of my sight. So the perfection of the sight is to have darshan of the Supreme Lord. So, and this may take many births to come to this stage of Yad Darshanam Janmabhir Idya Sadbhi. So, may take many births before one can achieve this perfection of seeing the Supreme Lord face to face. That's what Kardamuni is saying. So, Prabhupada writes, the Supreme Personality of God is described here as the reservoir of all goodness and pleasure. So here he is described as Akhila Sattva Rashi. Akhila Sattva Rashi. So what goodness is this? What type of goodness?
Pure.
Yes, pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva. But Prabhupada makes a point, unless one is situated in the mode of goodness, there is no real pleasure. When therefore one's body, mind, and activities are situated in the service of the Lord, one is on the highest perfectional stage of goodness. So you can explain the statement, unless one is situated in the mode of goodness, there's no real pleasure. Somebody wants to explain?
As it is.
But in others,
So what does it mean? Seeing things clearly means what?
means you can understand scriptures, means shastras as they are.
Okay. And in other modes?
Other modes, if it is right, you'll think it's opposite.
Okay, that's in Tamaga. Okay, fine. Somebody else wants to explain a little more? वहाँ पर भी एक mic.
In mode of goodness, we naturally do means shastra related things and which connect with us with God, and this is nourishing to soul, so that that pleasure which is takes us to eternal pleasure, that is real pleasure. So goodness directs us toward that eternal pleasure. In that sense, I am thinking.
Okay, ठीक है.
Discrimination, what is good and what is bad, what is real and what is unreal, that can be understood in sattva.
Okay, power of discrimination is in sattva. Good.
In Bhagavad Gita, Lord tells Sukham and Jnanam is a characteristic of mode of goodness. So only when one is situated in goodness, one can experience Sukha and Jnana.
Of course, Krishna says one becomes conditioned by Sukham and Jnana. But of course, those are the effects of mode of goodness. That's correct, Sukham and Jnana. But those also becomes the cause of his conditioning. Online, anyone wants to say?
Yes, Prati, this mode of means the pleasures and passion and ignorance is very temporary and flickering, and it binds.
So what does Krishna say about happiness in the mode of passion and ignorance? 18th chapter of Gita.
Very short term and causing bondage.
Okay. Anybody else? What does Krishna say about
Nectar in the
bolo?
poison at the end. Nectar in the beginning, poison at the end.
Yes. So happiness in the mode of passion, it appears to be nectar in the beginning, but poison at the end. Okay, you substantiate this with another verse from Bhagavad Gita. Fifth chapter.
यही संस्पर्श जब होगा.
Yes. यही संस्पर्श जब होगा दुख योनय एवते आद्यंतवंत कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधा. So the so-called happiness which one derives by contact of the senses with the sense objects only leads to dukkha yonaya evate. So initially it appears as if there is some happiness. So all types of sense gratification, it appears as if there is happiness. But later on, so much of misery. Give some examples. एग्जाम्पल कुछ दो. क्या चित्र के तुम्हारे क्या हो गया? माइक सामने.
Hankering for son.
हाँ.
After getting son, he's so much misery.
Okay. Okay. He was hankering for son, then he got misery because of the son. So his name was? Yes, Harsha Shok. Initially some Harsh, but a lot of Shok also after that. Of course, that's applicable to any son, not only for Chitraketu Maharaj.
People go for illicit connections, and then there's so much complications in life.
Complication due to what?
Complication means diseases and also many complications we know because of illicit connections.
Okay, illicit connections, sexually transmitted diseases, so many problems. So Prabhupada says sex life, legal or illegal, so many complications. So like that, you take any example of any so-called pleasure. So similarly, eating. So if one eats unrestrictedly, then what happens? Yes, again diseases, so many problems. So any type of pleasure, initially one may think that there is some nectar, there is some happiness, but eventually it will lead to so much distress, dukkha. So therefore, somebody in the mode of goodness, then he has gyan, he has knowledge, he has discrimination. So therefore, he can understand what is good, what is bad. And so therefore, even though he may try to enjoy sense gratification, but he does that, how? In the mode of goodness, how one enjoys?
By making sure that it doesn't go against the Shastra's
Yes,
injunctions.
good point. So somebody in goodness, even if he wants sense gratification, then he follows the Shastric injunctions. So then he follows the Shastric injunctions, so there is some purification. And so therefore, when one follows the Shastric injunctions, there is pleasure, there is happiness, because ultimately one gets purified by following the Shastric injunctions and the Lord is pleased. So therefore, there is some pleasure in the mode of goodness because one follows this Shastra. Happiness is due to following the Shastra. It's pious life. And distress, miseries are due to sinful life. So somebody in the mode of goodness, he understands the difference between pious life and sinful life. And so therefore, somebody who leads a life in the mode of goodness can get some pleasure. But even that pleasure is temporary. And so therefore, the ultimate pleasure can only be achieved by what? Yes, by devotional service. Because only by devotional service, why that is the ultimate pleasure? Okay, it nourishes the soul, satisfies the soul. A verse from the first canto of the Bhagavatam. Famous verse? Pura verse bolo. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yatho bhakti radokshje ahaituki apratiyata yayatma suprasiddhati. So if one practices pure devotional service, which is ahaituki apratiyata, if one practices that type of devotional service, then the result will be yayatma suprasiddhati. There the word atma refers to body, mind, soul. At all levels, one will be satisfied. And so therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes further down, first canto, second chapter, 8th verse purport. Srila Prabhupada concludes that purport. The last sentence of that purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the hankering soul can only be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. And that's a perfect statement. The hankering soul, the soul is hankering for what? Pleasure. Yes, the Anandmayo Bhyasat. The soul is hankering for pleasure, Ananda. But of course, in that purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the soul is hankering for freedom. So, distress is due to bondage. Correct? Nobody likes to be bound, isn't it? Everyone wants freedom. They fought for so many years to get India's independence. So, everyone wants freedom. Nobody likes bondage. CBA, OBA, nobody likes, right? Everyone thinks it's bondage. आप लोगों को क्या चल रहा है पता नहीं है. So any case, so people want freedom. The soul wants freedom. And the real freedom is freedom from what? Freedom from suffering. What are we bound by in this material world? Yes, the three modes. Guna. Guna means rope. So we are bound by three modes. So this bondage. So that is the conditioning in material life, right? We say conditioned soul, nitya baddha. So what is the conditioning? The conditioning is we are bound. That means we are not free to do whatever we like. Are we free? So that's what we were giving examples now. So whatever we do, there is going to be what? Reaction. One is not free. One is not free to eat as much as one likes. One is not free to enjoy as one likes. One is not free. One is conditioned. One can't do what one likes. Prabhupada gives example. See, the small bird so easily flies. He says, but even if the greatest of scientists thinks I want to fly like the bird, possible? Now for that he has to invent an aeroplane which can crash also. But the bird never crashes. So this is our conditioning. We are not free to do whatever you like. That's why it is called conditioned life. So then as one becomes more and more purified, one becomes more and more liberated, one gets more and more freedom. Just like we will see now, Karda Muni, so much freedom on the liberated platform. But conditioned life means one is conditioned. That means everything one does is under certain conditions, terms and conditions applied, whatever one does. So that is limitation in material life. Nobody likes. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada explains, the soul is hankering for real freedom. And that hankering soul can only be satisfied by what? Perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. It is a science. Science matlab kya?
Can be experimented.
Okay, can be experimented. And then what happens after the experiment?
Result will definitely.
Yes, result is defined. So if one does the experiment under proper terms and conditions, then one can expect the result. And the result is guaranteed if one performs the experiment properly. Otherwise, you have to manipulate, correct? Everyone does, no? Manipulation in science. Because nobody is perfect. So, devotional service is science. To explain the science, there are all these scriptures, so many books. Srila Prabhupada has given for what? To explain the science, so that we can follow the science properly. If we follow the science properly, then the result is guaranteed. Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam. The result can be perceived. But for that, one has to follow the process perfectly. Then one can experience real pleasure. So that is what is being explained here. Unless one is situated in this mode of goodness, there is no real pleasure. So when therefore one's body, mind, activities are situated in the service of the Lord, one is on the highest perfectional stage of goodness. So then by devotional service, one can transcend the modes. Verse from Bhagavad Gita. Yes, Mam chaya vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatidyetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. For a devotee, further down the purport, for a devotee, the perfection of the senses is to engage in the service of the Lord. And then Prabhupada is writing how each one of the senses can be engaged in the service of the Lord. And by engaging, then what happens? So further down, when all the senses engage in relationship with the personality of Godhead, one's perfection is technically called Bhakti Yoga, which entails detaching the senses from material indulgence and attaching them to the service of the Lord. When one is freed from all designated conditional life and fully engages in the service of the Lord, one's service is called Bhakti Yoga. Verse? सर्वपादी विनिर्मुक्तम तत्परत्वेन निर्मलम ऋषिकेन ऋषिकेश सेवनम भक्तिर उच्यते. Okay, next 14. So this is continuation of what? What are we discussing?
Prayers.
Whose prayers? Kardamuni's prayers. Okay, so now let's go to 14. Ye mayate hatamedasastvat padarvindam bhavasindhu potam upasate kamalavayate sham rashisha kaman nirayeti yesu. Pass.
Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane existence. In a sense, only persons deprived of their intelligence by the spell of the deluding energy will worship those feet with a view to attain the trivial and momentary pleasures of the senses, which even the persons rotting in hell can attain. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you bestow mercy even upon them.
So here, here is comparing the Lord's lotus feet to Padaravindam Bhavasindhu Potam. Padaravindam Bhavasindhu Potam. Potam means boat. So the Lord's lotus feet are a boat to cross over Bhavasindhu, the ocean of material existence. So this analogy has been given in many places in the Bhagavatam, how the Lord's lotus feet are compared to a boat. So can you quote another verse? One famous verse?
So
one famous verse is this. Samashritaye padapallavaplavam mahat padam punya yasho murare bhavam vatsa padam param padam padam yad vipadam natesham. So there also the Lord's lotus feet are compared to a boat. Which is the other verse you're saying? लेकिन उसमें बोट है. Yes. उसको explain करो थोड़ा. That's from the 11th.
Andrudeham Adhyam Suladam Sudurlabam means this material means human form of life we have got very easily, but it is very rare to attain. Plavam Sukalpam Guru Karnadaram. This human form of life body is compared to a boat, and Plavam Sukalpam Guru Karnadaram, and the captain of this boat is spiritual master. Sukalpam Guru Karnadharam. Mayanu Kulena Navasudya means favorable winds are like Shastras. Puman Bhavabdim Natares Mahatma. Even though obtaining such a favorable situation, if one doesn't cross this material existence, he is really committing suicide.
Yes, Atmaha, killer of the soul. So, so therefore, here also there's a similar point made. So the Lord's lotus feet, he's saying, are like the boat to cross over the ocean. But who does not take advantage? Ye mayate hatamedasa. Those who have lost their intelligence. Hatamedasa. Why they have lost? Maya. By the influence of the material energy, they have lost their intelligence. And so therefore, what do? Kama lavaya tesham rasi. So, they worship, upasate. They worship, but for what? Kama. So they worship the Lord, but for achieving some trivial material pleasures. And these material pleasures, kama niraye api. So even though one may be in hell, still one gets these material desires. Material things one gets everywhere. So just like in jail also one will get, no? In jail also one gets food, shelter, one gets in jail also. So similarly, material desires, material things can be gotten everywhere. So nothing special to get material things. So therefore, he's saying, you can help one cross the ocean of material existence, but if one worships you simply for material desires, fulfilling material desires, then he is considered to be lost of all good intelligence by the influence of material energy. So Prabhupada is talking about those who worship the Supreme Lord for achieving material things, 7th chapter, which was? हाँ बोलो ए ऑनलाइन बोलो ऑनलाइन वाले सोना मत है दोपहर के समय हाँ चतुर्वेदा भजन्ते माम जना सुकृतन अर्जुन आर्थो जिज्ञासुर अर्थार्थी ज्ञान So that is what Prabhupada is quoting. So they worship the Supreme Lord for material pleasures. Material pleasures can be attained even by hogs, dogs, whose condition of life is hellish. So further down the purport, Prabhupada writes, the Lord is so kind that if so-called yogis are satisfied by hellish pleasures, he can give them facilities to attain all material pleasures they desire, but they cannot attain the perfectional stage attained by Kardamuni. So hellish and demoniac persons do not actually know what is the ultimate attainment in perfection, and therefore they think that sense gratification is the highest goal of life. They advise that one can satisfy the senses and at the same time by reciting some mantra and by some practice can cheaply aspire for perfection. Such persons are described here as Hatha Medasa, which means those whose brains are spoilt. They aspire for material enjoyment by perfection of yoga or meditation. Okay, so I'll read this commentary of Vishnu Thakur. So he explains a little more graphically. So he says, oh, people worship you, the ocean of mercy, for fulfilling material desires. This is their foolishness. So Krishna also says, those who worship the devatas for fulfilling material desires are also considered to be foolish. What?
Alpamedasa.
Kama iste ritagyana. Of course, the other verse is also there. Alpamedasa. So this is their foolishness. Those who have lost intelligence because of your Maya, only those and no others. Only those who have lost their intelligence due to Maya, Hatamedasa, worship you to attain such a particle of pleasure. This is insignificant, particle of pleasure. But you give them those pleasures profusely, though you're reluctant. If you did not do so, they, not knowing the happiness of bhakti, would quickly give up devotion to you. So the Lord fulfills those material desires. Why? Otherwise, they'll totally give up bhakti. So at least if their material desires are fulfilled, then at least they may continue their bhakti for the sake of getting material desires. So sometimes the Lord can fulfill. You do so hoping that by not giving up bhakti for some time, they will lose those desires. So sometimes the Lord fulfills those desires so they continue their bhakti. And then when they continue their bhakti, then what will happen? What will happen? Yes, those desires will get purified, just like Dhruva Maharaj. So fulfilling those desires is not your final intention, since those desires for sons, wife, wealth, and family will lead them to hellish birth. However, since there's a rule that karmas lead to heaven or hell, but that enjoyment given by you does not generate such karmas, those desires do not really lead to bondage. Thus, in reality, the meaning of the words heaven and hell does not apply in this case. However, because of similar results, it is stated here. Okay. So even when the Lord gives material enjoyment, but it does not lead to bondage. That's what he's saying. It will only lead to purification of those material desires. And so therefore, the Shastras say, even if you have material desires, worship the Supreme Lord. Was? Yes. Akama sarva kamova moksha kamo dharadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajite purusham para. Okay, so now Kardamoni is expressing his desire. 15th verse. Tata sachaham parivodukamaha samanashilam grihamed dhenum upeyivan moolam ashesha moolam durashaya kama dughangribasya. कृपा सिंधु प्रभु पढ़िए.
Therefore, desiring to marry a girl of a like disposition, who may prove to be a veritable cow of plenty in my married life, to satisfy my lustful desire, I too have sought the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of everything, for you are like a desert tree.
So in the previous verse, he said that who asked for material desires from the Lord? Hatamedas. Those who have lost their intelligence. But now here what he is doing? He is asking for material desires. Which superior? Of course, Brahmaji told him to increase progeny. That is there. That's correct in one sense. Of course, Prabhupada explains in a slightly different way. So here he is requesting that he wants to marry a girl who is samana shilam, girl of like disposition, who is grihame dhenum. Okay. Prabhupada writes, the phrase like disposition is very significant. Formerly, boys and girls of similar dispositions were married. The similar natures of the boys and of the boy and girl were united not to make them happy. Not more than 25 years ago, and perhaps it is still current, parents in India used to consult the horoscope of the boy and girl to see whether there would be factual union in their psychological conditions. These considerations are very important. Nowadays, marriage takes place without such consultation, and therefore soon after the marriage, there is divorce and separation. Formerly, husband and wife used to live together peacefully throughout their whole lives, but nowadays it's a very difficult task. So this is one use of astrology that Srila Prabhupada gives. So for marriages, for matching the horoscopes and the natures, like disposition of boys and girls, then these horoscopes and astrology can be used. So this is one use of astrology Prabhupada recommends. So of course, other places Srila Prabhupada explains that, so even for devotees, because devotees, till they are not completely on the transcendental platform, then it still applies. As long as one is under the influence of the modes, then people have different natures, isn't it? By the influence of the modes. So only when one becomes transcendental, Brahmabhuta stage, then one becomes free from the influence of the modes. But till that point of time, the influence of modes is there. So therefore, this is still recommended, even though they're devotees. So next paragraph, Prabhupada writes, in astrology, a man is considered fortunate who has great wealth, very good sons, or a very good wife. Of these three, one who has a very good wife is considered the most fortunate. Before marrying, one should select a wife of like disposition and not be enamored by so-called beauty or other attractive features for sense gratification. Okay, so the character to be seen before the marriage is what? Like disposition, character. That is what is more important. Now, another point Prabhupada writes in the next paragraph, Kardamuni could have asked this benediction from Uma. For it is recommended in scriptures that if anyone wants a good wife, he should worship Uma. But he preferred to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead because it is recommended in the Bhagavatam that everyone, whether is full of desires, has no desire, desires for liberation, should worship the Supreme Lord. Okay, so we just discussed that. So further down, on to the end of the paragraph, The advantage of worshipping the Supreme Person is that even if one has desires for material enjoyment, if he worships Krishna, he will gradually become a pure devotee and have no more material. So that's the advantage. The advantage is those material desires also will become purified by worshipping the Supreme Lord. Anyway, Vishwanath Thakur makes some interesting points here. So he says, though I criticize those with material desires, I am the chief person with material desires. So you'll want to see this on the screen or it's okay? Huh? You're okay? Yeah. You're okay? So you decide. If you want, you connect. But then if you can, you have to online, then you have to share also, no? Oh, very complicated. Anyway, I'm not going to read all of them. I'm going to read only a few of them. Okay. So anyway, hearing is good enough. So he says, though I criticize those with material desires, I am the chief person with material desires. I desire to marry a wife who supplies artha, dharma, and kama in household life. Griha meda dhenum. This is quite an interesting point. He says, by calling his wife a cow, dhenu, he implies that he is a bull, since he has no intelligence. That's an interesting thing. Among those with material desires, I am evil, dunashaya, have no intelligence because of my bad intentions. I approach the feet, the source of all objects, Ashesha Moolam, of you who are a desire tree, simply to get married. So, that is what he says. So, of course, in one sense, he's condemning himself, but still, he has the desire. Okay. Of course, literally also it's correct that he is asking for something material, even though he has darshan of Supreme Lord right in front of him. So actually, in maybe this purport, this coming purport, Prabhupada explains. Okay, 16th verse. Prajapateste vachasa dishatantya loka kilayam kamahato nubhaddha aham cha lokanugato vahami balim cha shukla nimishayatubhyam.
O my Lord, you are the master and leader of all living entities. Under your direction, all conditioned souls, as if bound by rope, are constantly engaged in satisfying their desires. Following them, O embodiment of religion, I also bear oblations for you, your eternal time.
Right. So here he says that the Supreme Lord, he is Prajapati, the master of all living entities. And everyone is bound by what? Vachasa adhisha tantya loka. So all the conditioned souls are bound by what? Vachasa, the directions of the Supreme Lord. Everyone is bound to follow the directions of the Supreme Lord. Nobody can disobey the orders of the Supreme Lord. Can anyone disobey? So this example is used in many places in the Bhagavatam. Which? Correct. The bull that is controlled by a rope through the nose. This is an analogy which is there so many places in the Bhagavatam. So just like when the person, the farmer, he pulls on the rope, the bull has to move, totally under control. नहीं तो दर्द होता है ना, when he pulls, if he doesn't obey, it will cause a lot of pain. So he's forced to obey. So then the materialistic people may say, no, we don't follow, we don't obey. What do you say? Materialistic people don't obey, right? Huh? Yes. They are forced to obey. Proper analogy? Yes. So the citizens obey the laws of government voluntarily. If they don't obey, then they are forced to obey in the jail. So the same thing. So the devotees obey voluntarily. If they don't obey voluntarily, then they will be forced to obey by the material energy. So material energy is giving reactions to everything what a person does. He's going to get reaction. Where is freedom? So as Prabhupada says in his lectures, the person in the jail may say, I don't care for the government. Okay, he may say he doesn't care, but then the government cares for him. And so therefore to rectify him, he has to face punishment. He has to face punishment. So similarly, as Prabhupada says, so many lectures, Maya is kicking on the face. Maya is kicking in the form of what? Yes, birth, old age, disease, death, and the three types of kleshas. Maya is kicking all the time. Maya is kicking, but still person says, I am free. That is foolishness. So therefore, everyone is bound. Vachasa adhisha. Adhisha. So everyone is bound by the directions of the Supreme Lord, as if bound by tantya, by a rope. So here also he is saying that the Supreme Lord is time. So the Lord is acting through time and through eternal time. Animishaya. Through time, the Lord controls everyone. So Prabhupada writes, no living entity is independent. All are dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So no one can say, I am independent. Even though we're living in independent nation. So Srila Prabhupada in 1976, Srila Prabhupada was in Washington, D.C. and during this time, I don't remember the exact day, there is Independence Day of USA. Somebody knows what's the exact day? Sometime in July it comes. Huh? July 4th. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada was over there, and so devotees said, Srila Prabhupada, there's going to be a grand celebration in the city. So anyway, they invited Srila Prabhupada. Anyway, they wanted to see. So the Prabhupada was there. So then they went to see, and there was going to be a grand fireworks. And thousands of people had gathered to see that. But things get delayed not only in India. So devotees were waiting, Srila Prabhupada was waiting for the fireworks to start, but they were not starting. So quite some time passed, then Srila Prabhupada said, forget it, let's go back. So they went back, but the next day when Srila Prabhupada gave Bhagavatam class in the morning, then this was the topic Srila Prabhupada was speaking on, Independence Day. So Srila Prabhupada was explaining, oh, they think they're independent, but what is their independence? It is simply like dog's independence. So dog also thinks, I'm independent. I'm the independent controller of this territory. And no one should come into my territory. So we've all seen, no? Any dog comes from other area, immediately this dog gets so agitated because he thinks, I am the controller. But what is this control? So somebody takes one stone and throws, he runs away. What control he has? So then Srila Prabhupada gave the other analogy of the king punishing the criminal by dunking within water. So then when he's brought up for a few seconds, he thinks, I'm independent, I'm happy. But then after a few seconds, back. So this is independence in this world. So what independence is there? No independence. Practically no independence. Everyone is bound. That's what Prabhupada writes. No living entity is independent. So we have to realize this. So to the degree we realize this, we will understand the need to surrender to the Supreme Lord, because then we'll understand that we are dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So how much we are dependent? As we were saying. So Srila Prabhupada says sometimes there's a rich man, he has a lot of money, he can buy so much of food, but he cannot eat. He may have diabetes and so many other diseases. He cannot eat. So he has money to buy, but he cannot eat. So we're not even independent to have good health, to eat. So we are not independent for anything. For everything, we are so dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Without the Lord's mercy, one word will not come out. Without the Lord's mercy, one cannot sleep also. Some people have insomnia. They can't sleep also. In this way, one is so dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Therefore, the Vedic instruction is that one should enjoy life under the direction of the Supreme Leader, the personality of Godhead. So even if one wants to enjoy, then do it under the direction of the Supreme Lord. So Vedic literatures like the Ishopanishad direct that since everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should not encroach upon another's property, but should enjoy one's individual allotment. Was Ishavasyamidam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bunjita Magrida Kasisviddanam. Don't try to encroach on another's property. Be satisfied with what you have. The best program for every living entity to take directions from the Supreme Lord and enjoy material or spiritual life. So even if one wants to enjoy material life, do it under directions of the scriptures. And that definitely applies to spiritual life. So now, a question may be raised. Since Kardamuni was advanced in spiritual life, why then did he not ask the Lord for liberation? So, this is the question. Why did he want to enjoy material life in spite of his personally seeing and experiencing the Supreme Lord? Now, this is Prabhupada's answer. The answer is that not everyone is competent to be liberated from material bondage. Okay? So, this is one aspect, one viewpoint which Srila Prabhupada is presenting. So, everyone is not on that platform to want liberation, even though one has darshan of the Supreme Lord. It is everyone's duty, therefore, to enjoy according to his present position, but under the direction of the Lord of the Vedas. The Vedas are considered to be the direct words of the Lord. The Lord gives us the opportunity to enjoy material life as we want, and at the same time, he gives directions for the modes and the processes of abiding by the Vedas, so that gradually one may be elevated to liberation from material bondage. So this is what So if one wants to enjoy under the directions of Shastras, what is this called? Yes, Karmakand. So Karmakand is basically prescribed enjoyment. So why Karmakand is there? Because the living entities want enjoyment. So everyone cannot renounce, no? If everyone is told, give up all sense gratification, surrender, possible? No, not possible. Then people will say, oh, this religion is very impractical. So they won't follow. They'll give up totally. So therefore the analogy is given, what? The Vedas are like so the Vedas are compared to mother. Correct? So therefore, if just like a mother wants to give bitter medicine, what she does? Yes. She puts in some sweet and gives. Child thinks he is getting sweet, but along with sweet he gets medicine. So similarly, Karmakand is like, yes, the sugar coating. So therefore, Karmakand, the Vedas say, okay, you want enjoyment, take more enjoyment. Why only enjoyment on this? Go to heaven, so much enjoyment in heaven, take more enjoyment. But along with that, there is medicine. What is medicine? Yes, two things. One thing is following the scriptures, that leads to purification. And the second thing is chanting the names of Vishnu. So in all these karmakanda yajnas and sacrifices, there's chanting of the names of Vishnu. So that is the medicine that is present along with this enjoyment. And so that is how, because of the medicine, they gradually get purified. And that is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining here. So he gives directions for the modes and process of abiding by the Vedas so that gradually one may be elevated to liberation from material bondage. So initially they're not interested in liberation. Initially they're only interested in sense gratification. The conditioned souls who have come to the material world to fulfill their desires to lord it over material nature are bound by the laws of nature. The best course is to abide by the Vedic rules that will help one to be gradually elevated to liberation. Kardamuni addresses the Lord as Shuka, which means the leader of religion. One who is pious should follow the rules of religion, for such rules are prescribed by the Lord himself. No one can manufacture or concoct a religion. Religion refers to the injunctions or laws of the Lord. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. So Srila Prabhupada often gave the analogy of, just like one cannot manufacture, yes, state laws, sitting at home. You can manufacture, but who will follow? Maybe you can follow. So similarly, just like one cannot manufacture state laws, one cannot manufacture laws of religion. So therefore, dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Religion means the codes of conduct given by Bhagavan. So this is what Srila Prabhupada is saying. Why Kardamuni asked for material desires? Because that's his platform, that's his level. So everyone cannot directly ask for liberation. Okay, now we'll read Vishwanath Thakur's commentary also on this. So he gives another aspect to this. So in the previous verse, as we discussed, in the previous verse he said, who asked the Lord for material desires? One who is less intelligent. So the question is raised, if that is so, use your intelligence. Why do not worship without desires? Why? You can worship without desires. You can use your intelligence. You know that worshipping with desires is less intelligent. Then use your intelligence and worship without desires. But then he says, persons such as Marichi are bound by the ropes of instructions of Brahma, Prajapati. Your servant, the Lord's servant is Brahma. So one is bound by the instructions of Brahma to create progeny. And Brahma speaks only according to your instructions. Okay, so then he quotes from Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 10th verse. Sahayagya prajashishtva purovacha prajapati anena prasavishyadham Esha Vostishta Kamaduk. Brahma, having created the population along with sacrifice, long ago spoke, may you prosper by the sacrifice, may it fulfill all your material desires. So Brahma has no fault. He only echoes your words. Let the materialistic people be bound up. Why don't you overcome those desires like the Kumaras? My intelligence follows the common people. I cannot be like Narada and others. Like bull, I am bound by a rope and carry an offering to you. I follow your orders concerning material life. This means I desire a wife. The word cha indicates I also will perform bhakti in order to attain you. O Vishnu Shukla, I make an offering to please you, the form of time. Okay, so the other reason is what? It's instruction of Brahma. So it's instruction of Brahma to increase progeny. And what is Brahma's instruction? The Lord's instruction. So later on in the 5th canto, we will see in the Privrat pastime, when Lord Brahma comes to tell Maharaj Privrat to get married. So that time also Brahma, he says, the first thing he tells him is, don't think this is my desire. I am simply a servant of the Supreme Lord, and I am simply telling you what the Lord desires. So Brahma is servant of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, whatever he says will be the Lord's desire. So therefore, ultimately, it is the Lord who wants this material creation to be populated. And Brahma has been given that task to populate this universe. And so for increasing the population of universe, then Brahma has created all these Prajapatis, out of which one of them is Karda Muni. So therefore, ultimately, he's saying that we are all bound by the Lord's instructions. And so therefore, the Lord has instructed through Brahma to Karda Muni to increase the population. And so therefore, ultimately, this is the Lord's instruction. So that's what he's saying. He's saying we're all bound. That's what he's saying, right? We are bound by the ropes of the Lord's instructions. And so for Karda Muni, the Lord's instruction was to increase the population. But at the same time, he's also accepting the fact that I'm not on the level of Narada to renounce everything. So therefore, I have material desires. So on one hand, he's accepting that this is the plan of the Lord. But on the other hand, he's also accepting that this is a material desire. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he makes the point that, yes, it is a material desire, but everyone cannot be on the platform of renunciation to totally renounce material desires. So then, of course, so ultimately it's a combination of both. So a jiva has material desires, and then Krishna gives such a service so that he can fulfill his material desires and at the same time do service for the Lord. This is how the Lord acts, especially in the case of devotees. So he has done 10,000 years of tapasya for what? For what? No, Baba. The main purpose was what? Abhi humne padha na?
Wife.
Yes, to please the Lord. The main purpose was to please the Lord. That is why he did 10,000 years of tapasya. So therefore, he is basically a devotee. But at the same time, he also has a material desire. And therefore, the Lord also has given him such a service that he can fulfill his material desire and at the same time do service for the Lord. Therefore, you see both the points are there. So therefore, on one hand, he's accepting the fact that I'm not on the platform of Narada, I'm not so elevated, so I have material desire. Next verse you'll see, he condemns himself also for having the material desire.
Sometimes this shloka is quoted, Ami Vigya Murkhe. So that is quoted in where we can use that shloka, which context?
Right. So, Srila Prabhupada also quotes those verses quite a few times in his purports. Ami Vigya E Murke Vishake Nidiba Swachanna Mridya Vishaya Bhulaiba. So, as Srila Prabhupada explains, So this is for a very sincere devotee who wants to make progress, but at the same time has some material attachments. But the devotee's desire is not to fulfill those material things. The devotee wants to give up those material desires, but at the same time somehow he's attached. So then the Lord helps him by not giving those material things. But in this case, this is not the case here. In this case, Kardamuni, he wanted to fulfill his material desires. So then the Lord is facilitating his fulfillment of those material desires. But at the same time, he is also engaging him in his service. This is how the Lord functions. So that is how the spiritual master also, that is how he, as a representative of the Supreme Lord, that is how the spiritual master also engages the devotees. So when a devotee has certain desires, say for example, a devotee has a desire for some recognition, post, position, facilities, then the spiritual master gives that. Post, position, facilities are given. But at the same time, yes, but at the same time that is being used in the Lord's service. So he gets the post position, but at the same time he has to do service. And hopefully when he's in that post and position, gradually he'll become detached from the post and position. So this is how the Lord engages the living entities. So especially the devotees. So somebody has a particular desire, then Krishna fulfills the desire also, and then Krishna also fulfills his desire to get service done from the living entities. That is how the living entities will get purified. Therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur told that story of Balam rice and ghee. You know the story, Balam rice. So, if the servant has to continue his service, then he also has to be given Balam rice and ghee. So, what is the Balam rice and ghee for devotees? Pose, position, facilities. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada created all these nice facilities. So if we were told to live under a tree or some small cottage, I don't know how many devotees would be there. अभी इतने सारे फैसिलिटीज होते हुए भी लोग रहते नहीं. लोगों को बोलेंगे कुटिया में रहो, कौन आएगा? Prabhupada said that, I am ready to stay under the tree, but who will come? So Srila Prabhupada created all these facilities, palatial buildings, he created all this. Therefore devotees are coming, at least some of them. So this is all the bhalam rice and ghee. So same thing here also. So Kardamuni accepts that I have a material desire, so it's not so good. But in any case, I have the desire. So then Krishna is using that in his service. So therefore, both the points are there. So on one hand, it's instruction of Brahma, which is the desire of the Supreme Lord, and therefore he is being engaged in the service, and therefore he is desiring to get married. But at the same time, it is also his own personal desire, which is not the ultimate desire. So therefore, he is also sort of condemning himself, and he says, I cannot be like Narada and others. So therefore, like a bull, I am bound by a rope and carry an offering to you. So therefore, he's trying to do some service. Is this point clear? Huh? So see, there is a fundamental difference between two of them. What is the fundamental difference? Dhruva Maharaj initially, was he a devotee? Was he a devotee? No, he was not a devotee at all. He was a total materialistic person. But in the case of Kardam Muni, he is basically a devotee. Correct? His performance of all this yoga and tapasya is for what? Pleasing the Supreme Lord. He's son of Brahma. So he is fundamentally a devotee. In the case of Dhruva, initially he was not a devotee at all. But his desire to achieve the Supreme Lord was very intense. Correct? His desire to achieve the Supreme Lord was very intense for fulfillment of his material desire. So now, because that desire was very intense, then the Lord sent Narad Muni. Narad Muni gave him instructions. And he followed those instructions very rigidly, very sincerely. And by following those instructions, he got purified of those material desires. So, Dhruva, he did not have, he wanted his material desires fulfilled. But then, later on, when he practiced his yoga, he also was doing Ashtanga yoga only. So this is all in Sati Yoga. So when he was doing that under the instruction of Narad Muni, so his desire to achieve the Lord was much more intense than his desire to get the kingdom. And so therefore, because of that intense desire to achieve the Lord, so that material desire got purified in the process. But here in this case, we find he's a devotee. And he knows that his material desire is bad. But at the same time, he wants the material desire. The difference, right? So here, he knows that the material desire is bad, but he still wants the material desire to be fulfilled. Now, Dhruva was not so much attached to his material desire to be fulfilled after he began the process of devotional service. Though, of course, after Dhruva had darshan of the Lord, then he condemns himself. So there are quite a few verses where he's lamenting that actually when Narad Muni came, I should have immediately given up all my material desires. But I didn't do that immediately. There he is lamenting. But in any case, as he proceeded on with his devotional service, his focus on the Supreme Lord was all in all actually. And his material desires went totally in the background. But here in this case, he has knowledge, he has worshipped the Supreme Lord, everything is there, but he willingly wants his material desires to be fulfilled. See, there Dhruva Maharaj, he didn't have any philosophical knowledge, right? That material desires are bad, I should give it up. He didn't have any such knowledge. He was just a small boy with Kshatriya tendencies. But here, he has the knowledge and still he wants his desires fulfilled. The Lord is
Prabhuji, means Prabhupada already explained the internal and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is explaining. Only thing I want to know that Brahmaji instructed Kardam Muni. So just like a spiritual master instructs a person to get married, seeing his symptom that he want to get married. That is different thing. But already someone want to remain a brahmachari, like a Priyavrat Maharaj. So he was told to get married, and then he is creating progeny. And that is that cannot come under material desire. So in Kardam Muni's case, it is said that he was already detached. Means detached. Kardam Muni also means he was created for creating progeny, and he himself not express his desire to get a wife before meeting Brahmaji. When Brahmaji asked him to create progeny, then that desire come in front. Means as per as my understanding.
But I don't remember this.
So Brahmaji, he went to Brahmaji, means Brahmaji instructed him to create progeny, and then that desire is in line with the desire of Brahmaji.
Okay.
So how it is becoming a material desire? That's my
So see, that's what we were discussing, that both things go together. So Jiva has desire and the Lord instructs according to the Jiva's desire. So somebody has a desire, that's what we were explaining about the balam rice and ghee. So somebody has a desire, okay, somebody has desire, I want to control people, I want some post and position. So then when the Jiva has such desire, but now he's a devotee, so then he cannot fulfill the desire in a materialistic way, right? So even though he has a desire, he can fulfill it only through devotional service. So then so Krishna sees that this jiva has desire. So okay, but he is a devotee. So let it be engaged in Krishna's service. So that is how Krishna combines these two things for devotees. And that is what we find actually. So I know some devotees who are in management positions, and they frankly admit that we require this, a little bit of control, some passion, some creation. So they admit that yes, we have this desire. So yes, so they have that desire, then Krishna fulfills. ठीक है ना? Okay, so we require some break. Okay, 5-10 minutes break. You can take a break. Then we'll come. All right.
Even question now.
Okay, now we have already announced break. So after the break,
Okay. Okay.
Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, somebody has questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
I think Vilas Vadan had some question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes?
This is Jagdishwar Mandas.
Mm.
Prabhuji, regarding this case of Kardama Muni, if we say in the case of Narad Muni also, when the Bhakti Vedantist, they had trained, he has received the training, and at that point of time he had no attachment. His mother was also gone. At that time, when the glimpse of Lord Vishnu came, so Vishnu told that ki, you are not free from material taint, therefore I will not give you darshan.
Mm.
But here Kardamuni is with the material taint, but still Vishnu is coming and giving him darshan.
Mm.
So how to?
Okay, so fine. There, Narad boy, again, he totally followed the instructions of the Bhakti Vedantas, and so therefore he totally got purified. He was practically on the level of prema. So therefore he got darshan of the Supreme Lord, no? He got darshan of the Supreme Lord, but then he disappeared. So he was on the level of prema, almost on the level of prema, so therefore he got darshan. What was the contamination? The contamination was very minimal, as Acharyas explained. He was attached to mode of goodness. So that was the slight contamination that he had. But as the Lord explains, the major reason why the Lord disappears is to intensify his hankering in the mode of separation. So that was the main reason why the Lord disappeared. The contamination was very minimal, some attachment to mode of goodness. He was almost on the level of prema. So that was the case of Narad Muni. But in this case, he performed so much of tapasya, 10,000 years, solely for the sake of pleasing the Supreme Lord. And so therefore here the Lord appeared. So in both cases the Lord appeared. But there the Lord had a reason for disappearing, and that was to intensify his love for him. Here in this case, the Lord appeared, fulfilled his desires and went. So there also the Lord had a purpose, and here also the Lord has a purpose. So whatever the Lord does, there's a purpose behind it. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
Yes, Pradeep, one more question. Be like in this case, what should we understand? Like Kardam Muni, when he was doing that practice of whatever he's doing, then can it be considered as pure devotional service? Because Anya Vilashita Shunyam, we say. And in the similar line, whatever devotees examples you are putting.
No, we cannot call it totally pure devotional service. There is some contamination, no doubt. But at the same time, it is in line with Brahma's desires. So therefore, because he has desires, but they're in line with Brahma's desires, which are in one sense Krishna's desires. So therefore the Lord appeared.
But it is not pure devotional service according to Rupa Goswami or Bhakti Swami says. Then that is very clear. It is karma mishra.
So we cannot call it exactly karma mishra bhakti also, because the desire, though somewhat selfish, he was not trying to fulfill it simply on his own whimsically. So he's trying to fulfill the desire which is in line with Brahma's desire, and that also he is trying to fulfill by pleasing the Supreme Lord. So therefore we cannot say that it is totally a contamination of karma, because contamination of karma means that one is simply trying to fulfill one's fruitive desires on one's own, according to one's own whimsical ways. So here in this case, it is not exactly like that. So he's trying to fulfill his material desire, but in a very legitimate way, by pleasing the Supreme Lord. Okay?
Yes, please. Hare Krishna, Guruji. Guruji, just this point or ponder that he did tapasya for 10,000 years, and he's still saying that he has this desire that he's not like Narada. So just I was looking for your comments how much difficult it is to control this desire, sexual desire. So he did bhajan for 10,000 years, even still he's saying that he has this desire. So
Of course, as we read that this is in Satyuga, so from their point of view, 10,000 years is not much. So for us, we may think, oh, 10,000 years, but for, so they are living for 100,000 years. If you say percentage wise, it's 10%, right? So 10 years. That means what? Somebody practices bhakti for 10 years. So in our case, we have 100 years, right, Max? So then if we say somebody practices bhakti for 10 years, then what do you consider that to be a very long time or what?
no.
And then it is like that only.
Good analysis. मैंने सोचा नहीं था compare करके percentage में. Relatively, मैं absolute terms में देख रहा था, आपने relative terms में clarity.
Yes, it's all relative. That's true.
Yes. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Guruji, one more question.
Huh?
Guruji, in terms of Dhruva Maharaj, he didn't have pure desire to please the Lord. So still he got darshan and purified of the desire itself. And here he had pure desire of pleasing the Lord. And so while practicing and for pleasure of Lord for 10,000 years, if it is material desire, why didn't he got rid of that?
But he maintained it, na? He maintained his material desire.
Okay.
So he sort of purposefully maintained his material desire. So then that's free will of the jiva, na? To desire is the free will of the jiva. That nobody interferes, including the Lord. The Lord does not interfere. So, but on the other hand, Dhruva Maharaj, once he followed the instructions of Narad Muni and he got purified, then he didn't maintain that desire.
In that process, he got purified. Na? He started the process with that desire.
Yes, but see, even as a devotee, so if I'm practicing devotional service, but I still have a choice, no? Whether to maintain the material desires or to give them up. So if I don't maintain them, yes, they'll get purified. But if I purposefully maintain a desire while practicing devotional service, then who can do anything? Nobody can do anything. Because Krishna doesn't interfere with the free will of the jiva. What the jiva can do? He can desire. So if somebody is desiring something, even though he knows it is wrong, then what anyone can do? No one can do anything.
Yes, sir.
So it is like that. All right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, they won't hear.
Progeny. So you would have rejected also like that.
That is one thing. Rejected is one thing. And but at least after his performance of devotional service for these years, then at least later on he could have given up. At least later on he could have given up. No? But in any case, he's maintaining that desire, and so therefore, then the Lord is facilitating that. That much we can understand. Okay. So therefore, 10th offense against the holy name is what? To not have faith in the holy name and maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many glories. So that is an offense. So initially one may have material desires, material attachments, because that's the reason why we're in the material world. So hardly anyone will be a Nitya Siddha coming from the spiritual world and not having any material desires. So most of the jivas who come for what? Yes, for fulfilling some material desires. So therefore, to have material desires and attachments is quite natural. But after practicing devotional service, after knowing the glories of devotional service and the glories of the holy name, if one still maintains them, so that's considered offensive, that's foolishness. And therefore, in the next verse, we'll see that how Kardamuni is actually condemning those who maintain those material desires. He's condemning. Okay, 17th, right? Lokamsha lokanugatan pashumsha hitva shritaste charanatapatram parasparam tvad gunavada siddhu piyusha niryapita deha dharmaha.
However,
Hey, you read, no? You read, no? You read?
However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of these affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities in discussions with one another, can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body.
Yes. So here he is condemning those who are attached to worldly affairs. Lokan, lokancha, loka anugatan. So those who are engaged in worldly affairs and those who are followers of such people. So he's calling them as pashu. They're like animals. But who can give up? Who can give up such materialistic activities and following such materialistic people? Who can give up? Hitva shritate charana atapatram. So those who have taken shelter of your lotus feet, which are like umbrella. So this is also an analogy which comes in other places in the Bhagavatam, also in the 11th canto, prayers of the Devatas. They compare the Lord's lotus feet to atapatram, umbrella. There they extend the analogy saying that this umbrella is very special because from the umbrella there is drops of nectar, showers of nectar, so which totally give relief from the heat of material existence. So here also they're saying the same thing. So only those have taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. And what else they do? Parasparam tvad gunavada siddhu, which is like piyusha. So the devotees, what they do? Parasparam tvad gunavada. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, 9th verse. What? Machitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam. Same word, parasparam. Katayantascha mam nityam tushanti ramanti. So this is what, so those who are engaged in talking about the Lord's glories with one another, that is like Siddhu Piyusha. This is like intoxicating nectar. And then they can give up such worldly association who are simply interested in material things. Prabhupada writes, the principles of animal life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending are actual necessities of the body. But those who engage in transcendental Krishna consciousness, giving up all the stereotyped activities of this material world, are freed from social conventions. So then they can at least reduce these bodily needs and eventually give up. So further down he says, one has to act in terms of the Vedic injunctions in order to enjoy material life. But those who have taken to the devotional service of the Lord are not afraid of the regulations of this material world. Such devotees do not care for the conventions of material activities. They boldly take to that shelter which is like an umbrella against the sun of repeated birth and death. So yes, so somebody wants to enjoy material life, then he has to follow the injunctions of the Shastras in order to even enjoy. But the devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet even give up those injunctions of the Shastras, which are meant for material enjoyment. And then the next paragraph, Srila Prabhupada is comparing the material world to a forest fire, samsara, davana, lida loka, and how that forest fire can only be extinguished by the downpour of water from a cloud. And so this cloud is compared to the mercy of the spiritual master. By the grace of the spiritual master, the cloud of the mercy of the personality of Godhead is brought in, and then only when the rains of Krishna consciousness fall can the fire of material existence be extinguished. This also explained here. In order to find freedom from the stereotyped conditional life of material existence, one has to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not in the manner in which the impersonalists indulge, but in devotional service, chanting and hearing of the activities of the Lord. Only then can one be freed from the actions and reactions of material existence. It is recommended here that one should give up the conditional life of this material world and the association of so-called civilized human beings. So-called civilized human beings who are simply following in a polished way the same stereotype principles of eating, sleeping, defining, and mating. So these are who? Who are these so-called civilized human beings? So if they're gross materialists, then why civilized?
So-called.
So why so-called? So yes, these people are following Shastras, therefore they're called civilized. They're following Shastra, but for what? Yes, for sense gratification. So therefore, so-called civilized human beings who are simply following in a polished way. Polished ways, so they're following the Shastras. Yes. So, but such people are being condemned. Chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord is described here as Tvad Guna Vada Sidhu. Only by drinking the nectar of chanting and hearing the pastimes of the Lord can one forget the intoxication of material existence. So that is also intoxication. So then there has to be another intoxication to replace that. So this is also another type of intoxication. Therefore, it is called as Piyusha. This is nectar. So this is also intoxicating. But then one has to take this in sufficient quantity. Then one will forget that intoxication. So therefore, so Vishwanath Thakur also, he is commenting on that word lokan, on the first word lokan, so which proper translation is worldly affairs. So he says lokan can refer to those well versed in logic, mimamsa philosophy. So they're following scripture. Or those are their followers are those who are not well versed in scripture or follow their instructions with faith. So basically, they are also following some scripture, but basically they lack bhakti. They lack bhakti. So then they are also like animals. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next verse. न ते जराक्ष भ्रमिरायुरेषां त्रयोदशारं त्रिशतं षष्टिपर्व शन्नेम्यनन्त चदीयत्रिनाभि करालस्रोतो जगदाचिद्यधावत्. Okay, online.
Your wheel, which has 3 naves, rotates around the axis of the imperishable Brahman. It has 13 spokes, 360 joints, 6 rims, and numberless leaves carved upon it. Though its revolutions cut short the lifespan of the entire creation, this wheel of tremendous velocity cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord.
Right. So here Kardamuni is glorifying devotional service. So in the previous verse, he condemned those who are following some scriptures without bhakti. But here he is glorifying those who are following bhakti. So then those who follow bhakti, then they are not affected by this Kala Chakra. So this Kala Chakra, it has 13 spokes. So as Srila Prabhupada explains, 13 spokes refers to 13 months, 12 months plus Adhik Mas. It's coming next year. So, and then 360 joints refer to? Yes, 360 days and nights, and 6 rims refer to 6 seasons and so on. So basically the point is that as Prabhupada begins the purport, the time factor cannot affect the span of life of the devotees. So, what's the verse in the second canto? Ayurhariti Vaipumsa. Yeah, so similar to that verse. So the devotees are not affected. Why the devotees are not affected? They don't get old, they don't die. Yes, that's good. So they're progressing towards eternal life. And so therefore, even though they also get affected by time in this world, but it's not that they will continue the cycle of birth and death. So Prabhupada quotes the same verse towards the end of the purport. In the time factor, however, cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees. In another verse, it is stated that when the sun rises and sets, it takes away the life of all living entities, but it cannot take away the life of those who are engaged in devotional service. Time is compared to a big wheel, which is 360 joints. So this is as far as the devotees are concerned. 19. Eka swayam san jagata srishikshaya dvitiyayatman adhiyogamayaya srujasya dhapasi punargrasishyase yatho nanabhir bhagavan swashaktibi. Read.
My dear Lord, you alone create the universes. O personality of Godhead, desiring to create these universes, you create them, maintain them, and again wind them up by your own energies, which are under the control of your secondary energy called Yoga Maya. Just as a spider creates a cobweb by its own energy and again winds it up.
So Vishnu Thakur gives a good connection. So he says, you say the devotees are fortunate, but that you cannot be free of desire. Why do you not fulfill your desires? So this the Lord is asking Kardama. Why do you not fulfill your desires by worshipping devatas who quickly fulfill those desires? So if one worships the Supreme Lord along with material desires, who knows, sometimes he may fulfill, sometimes not fulfill. But if somebody goes to devatas, surely desires will be fulfilled. So Lord is asking Kardama. So in the previous verse he said, okay, devotees are fortunate. They're not under the influence of time. But still, there's no guarantee if devotees' desires will be fulfilled. So why don't you go to devatas? So then he says, in answer, he says this verse, but I do not see anyone except you in this universe. So therefore he's saying here, you create the universes, you maintain them, you annihilate them. So ultimately you are in control of all the universes. You alone exist. It is your desire alone to create, since there is no one else. Or it is your desire to create, which becomes Brahma's desire. You alone permit him. You perform creation by your Maya, which attain you by contact with your glance, or you create the universe by your material gunas, which you accept through the influence of your spiritual energy under your control. So the example of the spider is given to show that no one except the Lord performs the creation. So therefore he's saying, I should serve you alone, even if I have material desires, since no devatas exist except you. So ultimately, everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. So therefore he's saying, what is the use of worshipping anybody else? Even devatas are not independent. They're also under your control. So therefore, why should I worship them? So even if I have material desires, better I worship you only. So that is the understanding here. So the Supreme Lord is in full control. Therefore, the example of the spider is given. So the spider on its own accord creates the web, maintains it. When it wants, it winds it up. So therefore, the example of the spider, Prabhupada explains that. The spider, and of course, Prabhupada takes his chance to refute Mayavad. The spider is an individual living entity, and by its energy, it creates a cobweb and plays on it whenever it likes, winds up the cobweb, thus ending the play. When the cobweb is manufactured by the saliva of the spider does not become impersonal. Prabhupada, whenever he gets a chance, defeats impersonalism. Similarly, the creation and manifestation of the material or spiritual energy does not render the creator impersonal. Here, the very prayer suggests that God is sentient, can hear the prayers and fulfill the desires of the devotee. Right? So, this is the main difference between the Vaishnava philosophy and the Mayavad philosophy. So, the Mayavad philosophy, that is called as what? Vivartavad. So, they say that because the Lord has created the universe and He has spread everywhere, therefore, He cannot exist as a person. Because now He spread everywhere, therefore, He cannot exist as a person. The analogy they give is, okay, that's one thing. But in this context, what is their analogy? Paper. If you take a piece of paper, tear it and throw it, where is the original paper? So similarly, they say, Lord has spread everywhere in the form of this universe. So therefore, He cannot exist as a person. Therefore, He is impersonal. So how do you refute their analogy of the paper? No, see, how you refute their analogy? So you have to refute the analogy using logic, isn't it? You
sunlight.
Sunlight. Huh?
Sunlight, Fruji. Sun is there, sunshine is there. Sunshine is spreaded everywhere. So at the same time, sun is there.
Okay, you are using another analogy. You are using another analogy, but how you refute the paper analogy?
They are using wrong basis, Roji. Material paper is material, and we are comparing spiritual and material energies.
So what is wrong?
So in material terms, this is possible what they are giving, but Lord being defined completely spiritual in all the scriptures, we cannot apply material analogy on the spiritual Lord.
Yeah, that's correct. So therefore, Prabhupada explained. No, see, that is correct. Your Shastric reference is correct, but then to refute the analogy, you have to use something logical, na? So basically, Srila Prabhupada explains that for an analogy to hold true, there must be maximum points of similarity. Then it's considered a good analogy when there are maximum points of similarity. But in this case, what points of similarity? So the unlimited Supreme Lord is being compared to a piece of paper. So very bad analogy. So therefore, it's irrelevant. So that is called Vivartavad. So they say that the absolute truth only has transformed into this entire creation and therefore he is impersonal. But the Vaishnava understanding is what? Shakti Parinamvad. So Lord has expanded himself through his energies and therefore he still remains as he is. So therefore that's the point Prabhupada is making. So just like the spider. So spider is creating the web, but it does not mean that after he creates the web, the spider becomes impersonal. That is what Prabhupada is writing. So it's a good analogy to refute this Mayavad. So spider still remains. So if a spider can create a web and still remain, then the Supreme Lord cannot create all this and remain. And Srila Prabhupada in his commentaries in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he gives another analogy. So he gives example of a businessman. So he says just like a businessman, he wants to create a new factory. So if he wants to create a new factory, what he does? So he wants to create a new factory. How will it? So he has got his managers and he has got his secretaries and so many other people. So he tells them to start a new factory and then they will call the laborers and do all the… And then the factory is constructed. So after his new factory is constructed, what happens to him? He remains as he is. So not that now new factory is constructed, something happens, he disappears. He remains as he is. So all his energies, they do the construction. So similarly, if a material person, if a small creature like spider can do this, then why the Supreme Lord cannot do? So that is the point Prabhupada is making. So in any case, so here Kardamuni is saying, so why should I fulfill my material desires through somebody else? Because you are the ultimate controller of the entire universe. You create, maintain, you're doing everything. So why should I go to somebody else to fulfill my material desires? So even if I want material desires, I'll fulfill through you only. Okay, 20. नैतद्बताधीशपदं तवेप्सितं यन्माययानस्तनुषे भूतसूक्ष्मम् अनुग्रहायास्त्वपि यर्हि मायया लसत्तुलस्या भगवान् विलक्षितः.
My dear Lord, although it is not your desire, you manifest this creation of gross and subtle elements just for our sensual satisfaction. Let your causeless mercy be upon us, for you have appeared before us in your eternal form, adorned with a splendid breadth of tulsi leaves.
So here he's saying that although it is not your desire, you manifest all these gross and subtle elements for whose desire? Yes, the jiva's desire. So just like the jail is created, why? Does the government want jail? No. But still the government constructs the jail because they know that there are some people who are going to defy the government's laws. So therefore the jail is created for those people. So it's not that the government takes some pleasure in creating the jail and punishing the people. So similarly, it is not the Lord's desire, but because there are some jivas who want to enjoy independent of the Lord, so Lord gives them facility. And it's your causeless mercy that you have appeared before us. That's what Prabhupada writes. It's clearly stated here that the material world is not created by the personal will of the Supreme Lord. It's created by his external energy because the living entities want to enjoy it. And therefore, further down the purport, he says, the Lord unwillingly creates this material worlds. He unwillingly creates this material world. So Srila Prabhupada also gives the example of, so sometimes the son is not studying properly, even though father is telling, study, study, the son is not studying. And then the father, he has love for the child, so he doesn't feel like punishing also. So then what the father does? So the father hands the son to some tuition teacher, and then tuition teacher does the needful to rectify him and make him study. So similarly, the Lord also doesn't want to directly punish the living entities because they're children. So he hands them over to Maya Devi. Okay, please take care of them, rectify them. So that's what he says. So therefore, it's unwillingly he creates his material. But at the same time, he feels pity for them. So just like, again, the same example, the government creates the jail, but sometimes to rectify the criminals, who comes?
President or
So sometimes the prime minister or president may go to the jail to give some good instructions to the criminals. So similarly, Prabhupada writes, but he descends in his personal form or sends one of his reliable sons or a servant or reliable author like Vyasadeva to give instructions. He himself also instructs in his speeches of Bhagavad Gita. This propaganda work goes on side by side with the creation to convince the misguided living entities who are rotting in this material world to come back to him and surrender unto him. Therefore, last instruction of the Gita is, give up all your manufactured engagements in the material world, just surrender to me, I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. Okay, so therefore, Kardamuni is saying that yes, you never wanted this material world to be created, but then because jivas like me have material desires, so therefore you have created. So therefore, so Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, Okay, so if that is true means in the previous verse he said that yes, I have material desires, but in order to fulfill those desires, I want to approach you only because what? Previous verse, what he said? Yes, because you only exist. You are the control of this entire universe. You're creating, maintaining, and you are the ultimate control of everything. So even if I have material desires, I'm going to approach you. So then the Lord says, okay, if that is true, then by my mercy, may you have the greatest wife, sons, enjoyment, and wealth. So the Lord is granting the desire. So in 2 verses, he gives evidence that the Lord gives benedictions. Oh Lord, you do not desire to give these desired things to me, since you think of the welfare of your devotees. He says, you do not desire to give these desired things to me, since you think of the welfare of your devotees. This is understood from the Lord's words. He's quoting a verse from the 6th canto, 9th chapter, 49th verse. One who knows the highest good will never instruct a foolish person to engage in material enjoyment, just as an experienced physician gives his patient to eat food, gives his patient to eat food injurious to his health, even if he does not give, there's a mistake here. So he does not give the patient food to eat that is injurious to his health, even if the patient desires it. Correct? So even if the patient wants to eat some things, but the physician will not give. So then why do I give those things? Then the answer is, if you give material pleasure to us, that is because of our Maya. The ignorant devotee will otherwise be disappointed. So devotee wants material desires, and if the Lord does not fulfill, then the devotee will be disappointed. He may give up devotional service also. Because I ask, you give. The material happiness resides in the mind already in the form of vasanas. Okay, so this is what the jiva desires. He desires material enjoyment. There are material desires. So you extend that happiness by giving benedictions. That is the implication of the verb tan. If that is so, then should I give anything? So let it be given, but only for gaining your mercy. So he's saying that, yes, okay, you can fulfill the material desires, but then along with that, please be merciful so that eventually I can get purified. Oh, the devotee has fallen into the darkness of the material world. By the happiness I've given him, I will deliver him. Let it be given for the purpose of gaining your mercy. When the time of giving benedictions, you are noticed. By your mercy, you become visible with your glance of mercy, indicating your smile. Your spiritual body is endowed with shining tulsi, which gives you the great pleasure, since it has been offered during worship by the devotee. This form, worshipped by the devotee, is not material, showing the spiritual form as the Lord's mercy. Okay. So therefore, the jiva has material desires, and here is referring to a devotee. So devotee has material desires, and is approaching the Supreme Lord for fulfillment of material desires. But the Lord's mercy is that at the same time, He's given the chance to see His form, perform devotional service. That is the Lord's mercy. And so eventually, if he continues in his devotional service, he'll become purified of those material desires. So that is the mercy of the Lord on the jivas. And so therefore, even though Kardamuni has a material desire, it's not that he's giving up devotional service. He definitely wants to continue his devotional service. 21. Tam tvanubhutyo parata kriyartham swamayaya vartita lokatantram namamya vikshnam namaniya pada sarojamalpiyasi kama varsham.
I continuously offer my respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet, of which it is worthy to take shelter, because you shower all benedictions on the insignificant. Give all living entities detachment from fruitive activity by realizing you. You have expanded these material worlds by your energy, your own energy.
Yes, so here he's saying, I continue to offer obeisances to your lotus feet. So he has some material desire, but at the same time, he wants to continue his devotional service. Okay, he's not giving it up. So namami, abhikshnam, continuously offer obeisances to your lotus feet. So so why? Because yes, you shower kama varsham, you shower all benedictions on the living entities. But what is the purpose? The purpose is anubhutya uparata kriya artham swamaya. So ultimately, the Lord, he wants the living entities to become detached, detached from this kriya. Kriya means the fruitive activities of this world. So he wants the living entities to become detached. And therefore, so the Lord has created all these material worlds. Within the material worlds, people are trying to perform material activities. But what is the ultimate goal? Ultimate goal is so that the jivas become detached, understanding that by performing all these materialist activities, I cannot be happy. So ultimately, the Lord wants all jivas to come to this realization. And till the point we don't come to this realization, then Krishna is going to make his plans to create detachment. And so therefore we see even as devotees, if we don't voluntarily give up material desires, then sometimes the Lord may create situations where we'll be forced to become detached. So, depends on our own sincerity. So, if we are attached to our material desires and we want those material desires to be fulfilled, so sometimes the Lord can fulfill also. But along with every material desire that is fulfilled and the corresponding happiness that one may get, there is always a corresponding entanglement or distress. That's the nature of this material worlds. Srila Prabhupada writes in this Bhagavad Gita purport, 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12, that in this material worlds, there is always going to be mixed happiness and distress. So even though Krishna may say, okay, fine, you want your material desire fulfilled, he fulfills that also. But along with that, there's going to come distress. Some misery is going to come. So even as devotees, same principle applies. So those who have some experience, suppose somebody has desire for some post position and it's fulfilled. It's easy. So anyone who has some experience of that, then surely if he's sincere, he'll become detached. So that is how ultimately the Lord wants the jivas to become detached from all types of material desires. And that is why, even though he may fulfill, his mercy is he also gives the shastras, he gives the association of devotees, he gives all this, so that ultimately one can come to the right conclusions. So Prabhupada quotes Yathamam Prapadyante here. And further on, he explains that for material enjoyment, he has prescribed so many ritualistic sacrificial performances in the Vedas, and thus people may take advantage of those instructions and enjoy material life in higher planets, noble aristocratic family. This process is mentioned in the Vedas, and one can take advantage of them. It's similar with those who want to be liberated from this material world. And then Prabhupada writes an important statement. Unless one is disgusted with the enjoyment of this material world, he cannot aspire for liberation. Liberation is for one who is disgusted with material enjoyment. So one has to come to this stage of becoming disgusted with material enjoyment. Then one can actually desire to get out. And same point Srila Prabhupada writes in the purpose in Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, verse 8 to 12, where he talks about Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshana. So there also he explains that To the degree one becomes detached from this material world, to that degree one can take devotional service seriously. So when one understands this place is disgusting, janma mrityu jara vyadi, then one will want to get out of this influences. Okay, therefore, athato brahma jigyasa. Then Prabhupada is explaining that towards the end. The conclusion is that one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for any benediction. The word kama varsham is very significant, for it indicates that he satisfies the desires of anyone who approaches him. But one who sincerely loves Krishna and yet wants material enjoyment is in perplexity. Okay, Krishna can fulfill everyone's desire. Ye yatamam prapadyante. But if one wants to love Krishna and at the same time fulfill material desires, then he's in perplexity. He's in confusion. He's, he's put in difficult situation. Krishna, being very kind towards him, gives him an opportunity to engage in the transcendent loving service of the Lord, and so he gradually forgets the hallucination. So, Krishna may fulfill his material desire also, but at the same time, the devotee is also engaging in devotional service, and so therefore, he may gradually get purified of that material desire. So that is how the Lord reciprocates. So as Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, when by mercy you give realization of your sweetness, the desire to enjoy automatically ceases. You have a covering of happiness and distress produced from karma for all beings. So that's what we were discussing. There's always combination, happiness and distress, which comes from karma, fruitive activities, which is caused by the orders of your material maya. As long as you dispatch ignorance, the desire to enjoy remains. Desiring to increase the population, you fill us with material desire. Though we know this, we cannot give up our desires. So he's saying, we know this, that this is a problem, but still we cannot give up our desires. Thus, we are in a low position. You bestow desires to persons such as me who are very low, alpiyasi. So he's accepting that yes, this is not a very good desire, but what to do? I have this desire. But in any case, I'm trying to fulfill the desire through you. And so it's your mercy that hopefully I'll get purified. So these are the prayers of Kardamuni to the Supreme Lord. And now let's see what the Supreme Lord says. 22. Rishiruvacha ityavyalikam pranutobjanabas tam ababashe vachasamritena suparnapaksho parirochamanaha prema smitodvikshana vibhramadbru.
Maitreya resumed, sincerely extolled in these words, Lord Vishnu, signing very beautifully on the shoulders of Garuda, replied with words as sweet as nectar. His eyebrows moved gracefully as he looked at the sage with a smile full of affection.
Okay, so the Lord was smiling, and his words were like Vachasamrita. So his words were as sweet as nectar. Prabhupada comments on that. The word Amrita refers to one who does not meet with death. The words and activities of the Lord are deathless, therefore they are not manufactured of this material worlds. Then he's explaining how spiritual sound vibration, Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtan. So therefore the sound of the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, everlastingly increases the enthusiasm of the chanter. If one repeats monotonous material words, he will feel exhausted. But if he chants Hare Krishna 24 hours a day, he'll never feel exhausted. Rather, he'll feel encouraged to continue chanting more and more. So therefore it is Vachasamritena. So when a devotee praises the glories of the Lord is very satisfied and he bestows his transcendental benediction upon the devotee without reservation because he is always causelessly merciful towards his devotee. Okay, so transcendental sound vibration is like Amrit, but still why we cannot perceive the Amrit? Offenses. Yes, there could be many reasons. But in any case, in that context, you can read one purport, very nice purport. You can read 4th canto, 30th chapter, 20th verse. Huh? 30. There are only 31 chapters in the 4th canto. Okay, 430, 30, 20. Okay, read the purport. Tomorrow we'll discuss that. Okay, now the Lord begins to speak. 23rd. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Viditva Tava Chaityam Me Pureva Samayojitat Yadartham Atma Niyames Tvaye Vaham Samarchitaha. Somebody online is reading or we start here?
Online over, you can continue.
Okay, all right.
The Supreme Lord said, having come to know what was in your mind, I have already arranged for that, for which you have worshipped me well through your mental and sensory discipline.
Yes, so the Lord is saying, I know nothing new for me. I already know. Tava Chaityam Me Pura. Previously. What was the desire in your mind? I already know it. And that's the reason why you worship me through all this mental and sensory discipline, all the austerities. So, as Prabhupada writes, the personality of Godhead knew the heart's desire of Kardamuni and already arranged for the fulfillment of his desires. He never disappoints a sincere devotee regardless of what he wants. This is an important statement. He never disappoints a sincere devotee regardless of what he wants, but he never allows anything which will be detrimental to the individual's devotional service. So Lord is ready to fulfill the desires of a devotee as long as it is not detrimental to the devotional service. So the Lord may fulfill, but at the same time, the Lord will also purify. So that ultimately he gets rid of the material desires. But if some material desire is totally detrimental, then the Lord will not fulfill at all. So if some material desire is like sinful, which is totally against Shastra, then the Lord may not even fulfill that desire. But if a desire is not detrimental, but is sort of in line with Shastra, then the Lord may fulfill, but at the same time, he will purify also. "24. Navai jatu, no, Navai jatu, no, what is this? Navai jatu mrishaiva yasat prajadyaksha madarhanam bhavat videshu atitaram mai sangri vitatmanam."
The Lord continued, my dear Rishi, O leader of the living entities, for those who serve me in devotion by worshipping me, especially persons like you who have given up everything unto me, there is never any question of frustration.
As Prabhupada says, even if he has some desires, one engaged in the service of the Lord is never frustrated. Those engaged in the service are called Sakam and Akam. So those who approach the Supreme Personality of God with desires for material enjoyment are called Sakam. Those devotees of no material desires are called Akam. And then he says Sakam devotees are 4 types. Okay, 25. Prajapati Sutta Samran Manor Vikhyata Mangala Brahmavartam Yo Divasan Shasti Sapta Navamahim. Pado.
The Emperor Swayambhu Manu, the son of Lord Brahma, who is well known for his righteous acts, has his seat in the Brahmavarta and rules over the earth with its 7 oceans. 26.
So just on the previous verse, Vishwanath Thakur says, fulfilling your desire will not reduce your worship of me. Rather, you'll attain me. Please take courage. So he's sort of encouraging. Don't worry, don't worry. I'll fulfill your desire, but you continue your worship, then ultimately you'll attain me. So he's quoting a verse from 5th canto, 19th chapter, 26th verse. So this, I suppose, is one of those prayers of the residents of Jambudvipa. So there he says, the Lord certainly gives desired objects to devotees who request them. But he does not give in a way, this is very interesting, right? The Lord certainly gives desired objects to devotees who request them. But he does not give in such a way that devotee will ask again after finishing his enjoyment. He fulfills, but he will not ask again. That means what? He gets purified. He gives his lotus feet, which includes all desirables, to those worshippers who do not desire them. Okay, but if somebody has no material desires, then he gives his lotus feet directly. But if somebody has desires, he may fulfill, but ultimately purify them so that he'll not ask again for those desires. Worshipping me will never be without good results. In the end, I'll bestow my abode. Such worship among those devotees who absorb their minds in me, such as you, certainly will give results. Okay. Okay. So 25th verse, now he is telling him how his desire is going to be fulfilled. So now he's describing that the Swayambhu Manu, who is seated in Brahmavarta. Prabhupada says, where is this Brahmavarta? He says it's a part of Kurukshetra, or that Kurukshetra itself is situated in Brahmavarta, because the demigods are recommended to perform spiritual ritualistic performance Kurukshetra. But in others' opinions, Brahmavarta is a place in Brahmaloka, where Swayambhu Manu resides. Okay. Okay, now read a few translations. Read.
The day after tomorrow.
See, the Lord is so specifically saying, day after tomorrow.
O Brahman, that celebrated emperor, who is expert in religious activity, will come here with his queen, Satarupa, wishing to see you.
Continue.
He has a grown-up daughter whose eyes are black. She is ready for marriage and she has good character and also good quality. She is also searching for a good husband. My dear sir, her parents will come to see you, who are exactly suitable for her, just to deliver their daughter as your wife. That princess, O holy sage, will be just the type you have been thinking of in your heart for all these long years. She will soon be yours and will serve you to your heart content.
Okay, let's read this purport. The Lord awards all benedictions according to the heart's desire of a devotee. So the Lord informed Kardamuni, the girl who's coming to be married with you is a princess, the daughter of Empress Vaibhav, and so just suitable for your purpose. And then Prabhupada writes some important statements. Only by God's grace can one get a nice wife, just as he desires. Similarly, only by God's grace, the girl gets a husband suitable to her heart. Thus it is said that if we pray to the Supreme Lord in every transaction of our material existence, everything will be done very nicely and just suitable to our heart's desire. In other words, in all circumstances, we must take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and depend completely on His decision. That's an important point. Depend completely on His decision. So even if one has some desire, one should not concoct something on one's own. Depend on the Supreme Lord. So we should have that faith that ultimately what the Supreme Lord does is best for me. So man proposes, God disposes. The fulfillment of desires, therefore, should be entrusted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the nicest solution. That's a nice statement, isn't it? The fulfillment of desires, therefore, should be entrusted to the Supreme Personality of God. So even in devotional service, Oh, I want to do this service, that service. Even devotees have some desires, no? Huh? So somebody wants to start farm communities, somebody wants to start temples, somebody wants to do so many things. So, but one should not try to somehow manipulate things and try to fulfill. So sometimes we find this also. Sometimes devotees try to be manipulative, manipulate their authorities and do this and do that to fulfill their desires. But then if one tries to do like that, it becomes all very messy. One gets into very complicated things when one tries to do like that. But so even if one has desire, depend on the Supreme Lord and leave it. And let the Supreme Lord fulfill the desire as he wishes. That's what Prabhupada said. That is the nicest solution. So Kardamuni desired only a wife. But because he was a devotee of the Lord selected a wife for him. So he had a desire, but he didn't make his own, his own decisions or his own plans. He had a desire and he fully depended on the Supreme Lord to fulfill his desire. And so therefore, the Lord selected wife for him, who was emperor's daughter, princess. Thus Kardamuni got a wife beyond his expectation. And then Prabhupada again writes a very beautiful statement. If we depend on the choice of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will receive benedictions in greater opulence than we desire. Who's the best example for this? Okay, one is Dhruva Maharaj. Of course, he got a kingdom for 36,000 years. He didn't want it at that time, but anyway, he got it. Yes, Sudama. So Sudama, of course, he desired something not for himself, for his wife and family. But in any case, he had that desire and he went to the Supreme Lord. He got, I don't know how many times, millions of times more than his expectation. And it's described he got opulence greater than even Indra. Much beyond his expectation. Maharaj, kaise? Yes, of course, Lord Vishnu appeared because he followed Brahma's instructions. But this is a very important point. If we depend on the choice of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will receive benedictions in greater opulence than we deserve. So the important point is that even if we have some desire in devotional service, we should simply depend on the Supreme Lord and not try to get into unnecessary material manipulations and try to fulfill desires in sort of unethical or immoral ways. Then one may get some reactions for that. Okay. And then is continue. So Lord is predicting everything that will happen.
She will bring forth 9 daughters from the seed sown in her by you, and through the daughters you beget, the sages will duly beget children.
Continue.
With your heart cleansed by properly carrying out my command, resigning to me the fruits of all your acts, you will finally attain to me.
Right. So this is a nice verse. Tvam cha samyag anushtaya nidesham ushattamaha mai tirti krita shesha kriyartho mam prapatsyase. And meditating on this previous statement that Prabhupada has written, that how if one depends on the Supreme Lord, desires will be fulfilled much beyond expectations. Another good example for this is, yes, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada himself says that, that what he received was much beyond expectation. Srila Prabhupada himself says, initially when he went to the US, he was thinking, when I tell these people these 4 regulative principles, they will say, sorry, sir, please go home. That is what he was expecting. But then he says, but the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, people have accepted. So, in all ways, Srila Prabhupada definitely got much beyond his expectations. And Krishna gave him so much. So therefore, here in this verse he says, okay, so your desires will be fulfilled, but at the same time, you act without attachment to the fruits, resigning to me the fruits. So, Tirti Krita Ashesha Kriya Artha Mam Prapatsya. So you follow my instructions, and you follow my Adesh, Nidesham Ma, Nidesham. So you follow my command, then you will get purified, Ushat Tamaha. So you will become purified of the Tamaha. And at the same time, you give up the fruits of all your activities, then the ultimate result will be Mam Prapatsya. Ultimately, you'll attain me. So you see, the whole thing, everything is being done in a very authorized way. There's nothing unauthorized. So even though he has a material desire, he has worshipped the Supreme Lord to fulfill that desire. And then the Lord has granted him his desire. And at the same time, he's saying, you continue to worship me, follow my instructions, don't be attached to the fruits. So all these are important instructions for all of us. So in a practice of devotional service, we need to follow this process that the Lord is giving over here. That's the main theme of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Perform your duties, but detached from the fruits. So if one acts in that way, in accordance with the Lord's instructions, ultimately one will achieve him. And so therefore, Prabhupada is quoting from the Bhagavad Gita. What? Yat karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad juhoshi, dadasi. That was translation Prabhupada. So, and then all activities, therefore, whether for the welfare of family, society, country, or humanity at large, must be performed in Krishna consciousness. That is the instruction given by the Lord to Karda Muni. Maharaj Yudhishthira, welcome Narad Muni. Wherever you are present, that place becomes sanctified because the Lord himself is always seated in your heart. Similarly, if you act in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Lord and his representative, then everything is sanctified. So yes, so even if one has some desires, we should try to fulfill them in a legitimate way. Okay, you have some desire, go and consult the spiritual authorities and try to fulfill the desires in a legitimate way. So if one does in that way, then everything is sanctified. This is the indication given to Karda Muni, who acted on it and therefore received the most excellent wife and child, as will be disclosed in later verses. Okay, 31. Kritva dayam cha jiveshu datma cha bhayam atmavan mayatmanam sah jagat drakshasi atmani chapi mam.
Showing compassion to all living entities, you will attain self-realization. Giving assurance of safety to all, you will perceive your own self as well as all the universes in me and myself in you.
Okay, so in this way, the Lord is telling that, so he's telling him basically how to act. So he told him how his material desire is going to be fulfilled. He gave him all details, how his material desire is going to be fulfilled. But same time, he is now inspiring Karda Muni to continue on with his devotional service, perform his duties in a detached way, and perform other duties also, like what? Kritva dayam cha jiveshu, show daya, show compassion to all living entities. And so if you continue to do this, then Abhayam Atmavan, he's giving assurance without any doubt. Abhayam Atmavan, you'll become self-realized, and then you'll be able to see me in yourself, Mayi Atmanam Sahajagat. So you will see me in yourself as well as in this entire universe. That means you'll get realization of the Supreme Lord. Drakshasi Atmani Cha Api Ma. So, and you'll also see myself in you. So in this way, he was saying that you follow this process, you will get my realization. Again, Prabhupada is, because this verse can be misinterpreted by the impersonalists. So therefore, Prabhupada is defeating impersonalism in this verse through example of sunshine and all this. We've heard this many times. So anyway, Prabhupada is talking about this abhayam, further down the purport. To award fearlessness to the common man is the greatest act of charity. A sannyasi or one who's in the renounced order of life should wander from door to door, village to village, town to town, country to country, all over the world, as far as he is able to travel and enlighten the householders about Krishna consciousness. So this is how we can award abhayam. A person who's a householder but is initiated by sannyasi. So these are good instructions for householders. If we are preaching to householders, these are some good instructions we can tell them. A person who is a householder but is initiated by sannyasi has the duty to spread Krishna consciousness at home. As far as possible, he should call his friends and neighbors to his house, hold classes in Krishna consciousness. Holding a class means chanting the whole. See, this is what it means to hold a class. Hold a class means chanting the holy name of Krishna and speaking from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. There are immense literatures for spreading Krishna consciousness, and it is the duty of each and every householder to learn about Krishna from a sannyasi spiritual master. There's a division of labor in the Lord's service. The householder's duty is to earn money, because sannyasi is not supposed to earn money, but it's completely dependent on the householder. Householder should earn money by business or by profession, spend at least 50% of his income to spread Krishna consciousness, 25% for his family, 25% emergencies. So actually to be one with the Supreme Lord means to be one with the interest of the Lord. Okay, and the last verse which the Lord speaks to Kardamuni, Sahaham swam shakalaya twadviryena mahamune tava kshetre devahutyam praneshye tattva samhitam.
O great sage, I shall manifest my own plenary portion through your wife, Devahuti, along with your 9 daughters, and I shall instruct her in the system of philosophy that deals with the ultimate principles or categories.
Okay, so finally the Lord has told him that I myself will appear as Kapila through Devahuti. So in this way, the Lord fulfilled all his material desires, spiritual desires, everything the Lord fulfills. So this is the benefits of worshipping the Supreme Lord. And text 33, Maitreya went on, thus having spoken to Kardamuni, the Lord who reveals himself only when the senses are in Krishna consciousness departed from that lake called Bindu Sarovar, which was encircled by the river Saraswati. Okay, fine. So we'll stop here and we'll continue tomorrow. So what's the timing for tomorrow? Tomorrow is Ekadashi, by the way.
We can start early. Later. What devotees will prefer, we can do.
So Prashadam at 12:30, no?
We can start at 10.
So or you want to have the same timing, 2 to 5?
That is also okay. Devotees are. No, tomorrow Brahmachari class.
See, if we have before Prashad, then say we can start 10:30. So 10:30 to 12:30 is only 2 hours. Or we can start at 10. So if we start at 10, then 12:30, 12:45 is almost about 3 hours. So okay, 2 options. Let's take a vote. So first option is 10 to 1. Okay. First option is 10 to 1 and second option is 2 to 5. Okay, take vote.
Those who want 10 to 1 can raise their hands. The online also they can. Okay, then 2 to 5, those who want, they can raise their hands. Online devotees. Okay, which is 2 to 5 are
online?
Online, 2 devotees have raised hand for 2 to 5. Others have not raised hand.
So others, they have some challenge, 2 to 5?
Nimai Anand Prabhu, Pandurang Sharan Prabhu.
Anything is okay.
Ekadashi ko nahi rehta.
Okay, bro. 2 to 5, okay.
All
okay, everyone is okay? 2 to 5?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So tomorrow also 2 to 5. So we'll continue. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Yeah.
Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Yeah.
jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hare Krishna.